Hello there, everybody. This is DokDeino, or DokDeino for short. I'm back again for another little educational stream slash fundraiser, and for some reason my camera is super blurry and washed out. So that's amazing. Uh, Gotta love when that happens. I hope my audio is coming through all right. Hope y'all can hear me. I do see some people in the chat already. Hello, Kaden, and hello, Katina. Hope y'all are doing well today. I'm going to get something else on screen so it's not just my washed out face, because that would probably be nice. Do, 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 do. There we are. Okie doke. So as folks can see, we are once again going to be showing or seeing some interesting critters in the world of Jurassic World Evolution 2. Unlike previous times, I took the time today to get everything set up beforehand. So hopefully it'll be it'll be less of a pain than usual. We can hope. However, we do have some interesting options for our stream today. See, the title of this stream is A Cruise on the Jurassic Seas. And we are indeed going to be looking at the Jurassic Seas. But there's quite a bit surrounding them. There is water, there's land, and there's the skies. And we have representatives from each of those areas to talk about today. Oh, and we're starting off strong. Hello, Pinworm, sending in $4 for a super sticker. Thank you very much, Pinworm. So as the title of the stream says, this is a fundraising stream. If you guys want to donate, you can donate through YouTube. Oh, sorry, I just realized that apparently I can set a goal. So maybe because I put fundraiser in the title? That's kind of neat. Here, I'm gonna try something. Is my hat... Okay, yep, my hat's throwing off my camera, so I guess we don't have my hat today. Yeah, thank you, Pinworm. I'm just gonna put something in the top of the chat. Because while I appreciate any donations whatsoever of any amount, YouTube does take a pretty decent cut of anything you send in. So I would encourage people to send in donations via Venmo or CashApp, which I do have in the description, but I'm also going to pin in the chat. There we are. And again, those are just the preferred methods. Any way you donate helps out a bunch, and I really do appreciate it. It's just that YouTube can take up to 30% from any donation. Sometimes more, I've heard, which... Gotta love that, but 'tis the platform, I suppose. Anywho, while we get started, I'm gonna put a little poll in the chat, because, well, if YouTube would behave for a moment, are we going to start with the land surrounding this little ocean of ours? Are we going to start with the sea? Or are we going to start with the skies? All right, we'll go ahead and get that poll set up. We'll give y'all a minute or two. It decided to go weird, but we'll see how it goes. And so here's the kind of fun thing about the area we're talking about today. Unlike with the Cloverleaf Formation, where not many people know about it, a lot of people have some familiarity with the area we're talking about today. And while we wait for those votes to come in, I might as well tell you a bit about it. So, in today's stream, we are on the Jurassic Coast. The Jurassic Coast is an area in southern England, which, as you can probably guess, is on the coast. This is an area that is absolutely famous for just being filled with fossils. Some notable areas include the Isle of Wight, which is where you can find things like iguanodon and baryonyx. In other areas, there's a lot of ocean-going life, and in some places, weirdly enough, there's a lot of flying creatures too that are really well preserved, and we will talk about that. Because if there's one thing that shallow sea environments are good for, it's preserving fossils, and preserving very delicate fossils. And surprisingly enough, the area around England and Ireland, though we won't be focusing on that as much, has been a shallow sea for about 200 or 300 million years. So there's a lot of fossils to find. Okay, and we gave it a couple minutes. Looks like we will probably be starting with the sea, which is the main focus of today's video. So I'll go ahead and end that poll. I'm not sure what you mean by Diners Club, Pinworth. Alrighty. So, what was I saying? Yes. So the Jurassic Coast. The Jurassic Coast is a wide stretch of land that covers a wide stretch of time. It actually goes from about the Middle Cretaceous all the way down to the Middle and Late Triassic. So that's quite a span of time. And we're not going to be focusing on all of that in this stream. Instead, we're going to be focusing on sort of the middle section, in the Middle to Late Jurassic. This is when some particularly important fossils were discovered, and some rather important history was made. But as we are starting with the seas, unfortunately, because of the game, we have to go away from the ocean and we have to go over to this man-made lagoon. Because nothing is natural in Jurassic World. Anywho, we got a lot of fun little critters in here. So, where to start? That is the question. And I'm just pulling up my notes here, so I have them. Okey-doke. Well, I suppose we can start with something that's a little, it's both a little weird and a little familiar to all of us. How about we start with a giant fish? And the animation is a little broken because this is a mod. As y'all know, I play this game with lots of mods. But here it comes out of the hatchery. So, this critter here is a representative of Leeds Sichthes, or Leeds fish. Let's see. I like the colors on this one. It's kind of like a tuna. Leeds Sichthes is the largest ray-finned fish that we have any fossils, or that we have any record of. Or at least it's the most well-preserved. And by that I mean we have quite a bit of the skeleton, which is sort of weird for fish. Fish bones, even bony fish, have a very high percentage of cartilage. And that means that they are not the easiest thing to fossilize. Getting a fish to fossilize is getting some fish to fossilize is like trying to get your nose cartilage to fossilize. It just doesn't happen super often, unfortunately. Even so, Leadsichthys here is a rather interesting large fish. And you might notice it's got a pretty big head. And that is because this is a filter feeder. Leadsichthys would have lived a life much like modern basking sharks or whale sharks. It would have swam close to the surface, opened its mouth up nice and wide, and strained out plankton and tiny shrimp from the water column. Ember is asking, what if they get a rhinoplasty with marble nose parts? That would preserve. Um, but if we didn't have records of rhinoplasties, we might just think you broke your nose because a rock hit you. It's kind of fun, though. Anyway, Leadsichthys has been found mostly in Europe, although I believe there are some scraps that have been found in other places, such as Morocco. And yeah, it is gigantic. Let me pull up a picture, actually, because this is one thing I don't like about this game. There's not really a lot of stuff in the lagoons, unfortunately. Ooh, and here is a beautiful image, and I will get the artist credit is in the corner. So, yeah. It's a little big. It's a little big. And that name is very apt. This is indeed very problematic. Leadsichthys bones have been found, and they've been attributed to other animals just because we didn't realize what they were, partially because of the size. This thing could grow up to about 50 feet long and was surprisingly long lived for a fish. Well, some fish are long lived, some are less long lived. These seem to be on the longer end. Ember's asking if this could be the fish that ate Jonah. You know, if the Bible authors had known of it, it would have been a good choice. But yeah, we have quite a bit of the skeleton of Leadsichthys. And it is too big, in my opinion. I know this thing was a filter feeder, but still terrifying. still horrifying. Let me see if I can find a good skeleton. There's some good pictures. So here are photos of some bones from Leadsichthys. Katina's asking, or wants to look up what the largest ray-finned fish is. Living one by mass might be a sunfish, if I had to guess. A lot of our modern fish aren't super massive compared to those of the past. Which, modern biodiversity, that happens. Also, I love how this fin here, if any of you have ever seen whale baleen, it sort of looks like baleen. Oh, the oarfish. The oarfish by length, I can believe. Usually in biology, when we talk about size, we focus on mass. Let's see. Well, Wikipedia's article of largest fish by mass, all of the top, well, nope, Yep, the top 5 are all cartilaginous fish. Number 6 is the giant sunfish with a maximum confirmed mass of 2.7 metric tons. That's pretty impressive. I'm not gonna lie. Then it's followed by another species of sunfish. And I can just show this. Oh, they have size? Oh, yeah, there we go. Sunfish compared to a diver. And then we have sturgeon. And then more sunfish. Um, yeah, that is the big fish. And yes, sunfish can be the size of a car. It's rather upsetting. Um, anyway, so this is the largest fish, or largest ray fin fish ever known, and these guys are, I think they're trying to do a social animation, which uh, creatures in this game can interact with members of their own species. I think they're trying to do that, but something is messing them up, so they're just stuck together. So we're gonna go over to the one that looks like a piece of poop, I guess, but it's the only one that's not enamored with the other. Um, anyway, this is the largest fish ever known, but there are lots of other fish known from this area. So once again, we are in the middle to late Jurassic period, and by this time, there were a lot of modern fish that hadn't evolved. Many of our modern fish are actually quite new, and they have quite a lot of new developments. Many fish prior to the Cretaceous were slower than they are today and less flexible. A lot of modern fish have a more flexible spine that allows them to move faster and evade predators faster. That might have something to do with some of the creatures we'll be seeing later in this episode. With that said, there still would have been a flourishing population of fish of many different sorts throughout the shallow seas that unfortunately I cannot show in the game. We do have preserved crustaceans from the seafloor. Stations. Let me see if I can find any pictures. Oh, here we go. There's a pretty picture. So if Bumblebee is watching, she can probably correct me if I'm wrong about this. Looks like this is a fossilized lobster from the Jurassic coast, and these guys were all over the place. They have those nice hard shells, so they actually preserve kind of well. There also would have been ammonites and a lot of other interesting little invertebrates like crabs. In fact, many of them today can be found in concretions, which are a fun topic that I'll probably dive into more in some future video. Oh, real quick, Ember has gifted 5 DokDeino memberships. Thank you, Ember. And it looks like those went to Rana K, Dr. Tapioca Weasel, Jake, and Robin Webster. Thank you very much, Ember. Thank you, thank you. Anyway, the fauna of this area would have been a really weird mix of familiar and weird. Even the stuff that is similar to today would still be quite different. And I like that. It's neat seeing how life has changed throughout time. Let me see if I can find. Ooh, here we go. So this is from a blog called Fossil Huntress. And this is the inside of one of those concretions I was just talking about. You can see tons of little ammonites curled up here. Looks like a fish sitting over here. So I won't go super in depth, but in short, concretions are what they sound like. They are a block of hard, tough sediment that can form around some fossils or just randomly in the soil. Um, there's a few ways they can form. One of the more common ways is when something organic gets buried underground. Uh, underground. When something gets buried, um, there's sort of a halo of bacteria that will surround the buried object. And as they feed on the organic material, they release waste products into the surrounding soil. These waste products cause the surrounding sediment to fuse together tighter and tighter, eventually bonding and becoming stronger than the surrounding sediment. Because of this, concretions usually survive erosion really well, and they're actually really good at being incorporated into future sedimentary rock. So you can have concretions all the way from the Triassic eroding out into Jurassic rock, which then erodes out into Cretaceous rock. We have examples of this. It's pretty neat. Um, and they're really good for preserving fossils too, because they're tougher than the surrounding rock. They hold on really, really well, which also means that they are very annoying to clean up when you're preparing fossils. And I can say that from experience. They're uh, they're pretty horrific. Um, Also, so because, or sorry, apparently I can set, yeah, I can set goals apparently on my channel or on this stream. So we'll give that a shot. There we are. We'll set a goal of $25. We'll see how that goes. So we have a goal going. Hopefully we can try and get $5 super chats within the next hour or two. We'll see how that goes. Do 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 do. Um, Here we are. And like I said, there's a lot of there's a lot of well-known zones of fossils in the Jurassic Coast. One of the most famous spots for ammonites is an area called Lyme Regis. It's a beach that is just covered in these concretions with these beautiful fossils preserved inside. There's a lot of them. They're really pretty. With that said, I think it's time we move on to the next fish in our sea. So we will have to bid adieu to our poop-colored lead sichthies. And we're gonna go to someone who doesn't quite belong here. So the hatchery here says that this is an ichthyosaurus. Uh, but in fact, right now we are not going to be talking about ichthyosaurus. We are going to be talking about a later relative from the mid to late Jurassic called Ophthalmosaurus. And I believe these guys are panicking because of the lead sichthies, but hopefully they'll do all right. Oh, and Katina's asking if the color on the fossils is natural or if they've been painted. Um, Honestly, it can be either way with concretions. Sometimes they show up really well, sometimes they don't, and something is dying. Why? I thought I had. Sorry, I thought I had food needs set off or set to off. Uh, there. Okay, yep. Dinosaurs do not die. All the dinosaurs are immortal, hopefully, for the rest of the stream. We'll have to see if that actually holds. That said, I might as well give them some fish to hunt. They would have been hunting fish after all. Uh, do 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 do. There we go. Anyway, now we're talking about an ichthyosaur. And again, not specifically Ichthyosaurus. Ichthyosaurus here is a stand-in. This is a stand-in for Ophthalmosaurus, which, again, is a late Jurassic or mid to late Jurassic ichthyosaur that's named for its eyes. Ophthalm, which, if you've ever been to an optometrist, probably sounds familiar, means eye, and then saurus, meaning lizard. So it is the eye lizard. And they do indeed have very, very stunning eyes. I'll go ahead and pop up a video. I'll pop up an image of an ophthalmosaurus skeleton. And you can see one, this is beautifully preserved. This is just the full animal. And there's a lot of fossils from the Jurassic Coast that are just like this. That's why it's such a famous area. But also, you can see the eye on this fossil. And that is because ichthyosaurs, like many modern reptiles and birds, have bones in their eyes. And that probably sounds really, really weird. I'll explain that more in a second. Thank you, Vamsy, Jessica Amanda, for a $25 super chat. Thank you very much. And that puts us at 1 out of 5 for our goal. If we do hit 5 super chats, $5 or more for this stream, then y'all get to choose the next subject of the stream, or the next subject of next stream, where I do these little science talks, here in the chat, rather than having to wait for a poll. So if you're interested in choosing the next topic that I talk about, you have an option there. Anyway, Ophthalmosaurus. Big eye. Eye has bones. That weird, right? Not really. Ossified eyes, or having bones in your eyes, is really, really common in the animal kingdom. In fact, mammals, I believe, are one of the few groups where it's almost never seen. Instead, mammals tend to have a ring of cartilage. I'll lean in, show my face again for a second. They have a ring of cartilage surrounding the iris. And that's because that's where your muscles attach to move your pupil. So you want reinforcement in there for those little muscles to pull on, to constrict, or to dilate your pupil so you can see more light. And also just to help deform the lens of the eye a little bit to help you see at different distances. That's how you focus at different distances, is with those little muscles. And especially in diving animals or ocean-going animals, we tend to see these sclerotic rings, as they're called, filled in with bone. Which might give you a hint as to what this thing was doing. See, Ophthalmosaurus is commonly suggested to have been a diving ichthyosaur. So it would have dove deep into the seas to hunt, probably for things like squid or fish. With those big eyes, it would have been able to see very well at night, too. So it probably would have been a great nighttime hunter or just dark water hunter. And those sclerotic rings would help keep it help keep its eyes together. Help keep its eyes from not smashing, which can be kind of a concern when you're diving 100 or more feet underwater. And I'm just going to try to get a complete skeleton here of an ichthyosaur, not necessarily our little ophthalmosaurus here. This'll do. So it looks like this might be Ichthyosaurus itself. And there's something kind of interesting you might notice about this skeleton. There's an outline surrounding it. Now, why could that be? Well, as I've alluded to a few times, the Jurassic Coast is an area of exceptional preservation. Because this was a warm, shallow sea, animals that died sunk right to the bottom, and because of the abundant life near the surface, like plankton, tons and tons of sediment would settle out to the seafloor and would quickly bury the fossils. This also seems to have been before many of our modern, like bottom feeding bacteria or vertebrates evolved. Think things like hagfish. Well, hagfish may have been around, but they don't seem to have been as prevalent. And a lot of these sunk to the bottom fossils are exceptionally well preserved because of it. A lot of modern whale falls, for example, probably don't preserve super well because we have modern organisms that are super well adapted to devouring them whole. But that doesn't seem to have been true in the Jurassic. So we get these gorgeous fossils that have indentations in the sediment surrounding them from their body parts, such as the back fin of the ichthyosaurs and their tail flukes. That's right. They have a tail shaped like a shark's because these were quick swimming, ocean going predators. It seems this is just the body shape that you want if you're going to hunt things in the ocean. Almost all vertebrates that return to the seas adopt a body plan like this. Weird exceptions being things like whales and plesiosaurs, which are our next topic. So I hope you enjoyed the little ichthyosaur showcase here. Actually, it's funny. Does anyone have a guess why they're called ichthyosaurs? Besides just generally being shaped like a fish? Because that's not the reason. They're called ichthyosaurs because their vertebrae look like fish vertebrae. Let me see if I can find a picture, because it's weird. I can just show a bunch of these pictures, I suppose, from Google Images. So these are ichthyosaur vertebrae, and they are something called biconcave, meaning that they have this sort of depression you can see here in the top. They have that depression on both sides, and that's really weird for a vertebrate. Just most vertebrates don't have something like that, and I don't know why. I don't know why they do that. They just do, because they're ichthyosaurs and they're weird. Anywho, we do have a bit of a time limit tonight. I have another stream I have to be ready for in about an hour and a half. So we're going to move on from our ichthyosaur to another very, very famous resident of the Jurassic Coast. This is Plesiosaurus, standing in for Plesiosaurus. This is not a stand-in, fortunately. This just lived here. Oh, and those lead sichthies are still attached to the hip, I guess. Anyway, Plesiosaurus is a small plesiosaur from the coast of England. And when I say small, you might be questioning how small. About 10 to 12 feet long as an adult, I believe. Let me just get a picture here. But they're not big, which, you might not really, well, you might expect them to be bigger if they're the namesake of the group, but they're really not. They were just the first, which is how names go in paleontology. So this is about how big Plesiosaurus would have been. It's not a big animal, but it is a weird animal. It's a notably weird animal, and everyone has noticed why it's weird. That nice long neck. And what was it doing with that neck? Well, hunting fish. We have, oh, they're doing a little social animation. It's kind of cute. Aw. We have lots of plesiosaurs, just speaking generally, preserved. We have plenty of Plesiosaurus preserved from the Jurassic Coast because, again, great area for fossil preservation. And we have a lot of them with stomach contents. And they ate fish. The way they appeared to have eaten was, how did they hunt? Well, they have this nice long neck with a little head in front of the big chunky body. It seems they would have been able to whip around that neck really quick and snatch up fish as they swam past. Now, if you're familiar with fish at all, you probably know that many fish have a visible line running down the side of their bodies, called the lateral line. This is a pressure sensing organ on the side of the fish. And it's set off by disturbances in the water. So if you're something like a plesiosaur and you have this tiny head in front of your body, that's not going to disturb the water very much, and it's not going to give the fish much warning when you suddenly snap it towards them, while your big water-disturbing body is all the way back here, which I think is kind of neat. Also, something you see a lot in a lot of modern plesiosaur depictions is this little tail fluke back here. Turns out they had one too. They probably used it as sort of a rudder as they swam. And yeah, again, it's just a feature that seems to appear if you return to the water, which is weird. But plesiosaurs also have these big old paddles. They would have swam in actually a pattern very reminiscent of this, sort of alternating rowing motion. Kind of like modern turtles, but not quite like modern turtles. And they're also sort of strange. So all dinosaurs and many of the dominant creatures of, let me just double check something so I make sure I'm not putting my foot in my mouth. Okay, no, I did remember it. Okay. So many reptiles from the age of dinosaurs, like dinosaurs themselves, and alligators, are part of a lineage of reptiles called archosaurs. Archosaurs are one of the main groups of reptiles. It literally translates to ruling reptiles. But a lot of these ocean-going reptiles, weirdly enough, aren't archosaurs. They're part of a completely different lineage that seems to be mostly, if not entirely, extinct. I believe entirely extinct. Called sauropterygians, which translates to lizard wings. And gee, I wonder how they got that name. Plesiosaurs are sauropterygians. Pliosaurs, which we'll talk about in a bit, are also sauropterygians. And there's a bunch of other members of this group. which is sort of weird because none of them exist today. It's a completely extinct lineage of reptiles, which I think is kind of cool. Anyway, now there is a reason why I wanted to cover Plesiosaurus right after Ichthyosaurus. And that is that both of these reptiles did not lay eggs. Or sorry, neither of these reptiles laid eggs. They both gave birth to live young. And we know this because we have fossils of the mothers that died in childbirth. Or at least died while pregnant, and then the young were pushed out during decomposition. We have this for Ichthyosaurus in specific, and I'll go ahead and pop that up here. This is a very, very famous fossil. And you can see the mother laying here, one baby being pushed out of the mother, again, either dying during birth or being pushed out after the mother died. And I believe there are 3 or 4 other babies in the belly. So this ichthyosaur may have given birth to 4 or 5 pups at once, or whatever you want to call a baby ichthyosaur. Plesiosaurs, meanwhile, appear to have gone for a more one-to-one approach, as in one child per pregnancy, maybe on rare occasions too. This is, again, a mother, this time plesiosaur, with the remains of a baby right there. And we have a lot of them, which is kind of weird and also kind of cool. Caden Slinger in the chat says Sauropterygia may be members of Pantestudinines. I've heard that before, but I don't think testudinines in general are considered Sauropterygians. So to clarify that, plesiosaurs appear to possibly be members of the group that includes modern turtles, but the group themselves, Sauropterygia, appears to be completely extinct. So they're members of a larger group which survives, but the smaller group is extinct. Anyway, so we have these ocean-going reptiles. Like, this obviously is not crawling on land to lay eggs, that give live birth. And the transition from laying eggs to having live birth is weird. And by that I mean it seems to occur readily in some lineages and rarely in others. As far as we know, no dinosaurs gave live birth. And that could be one of the reasons why they don't seem to have ever become fully aquatic. It might have been a limitation for them. Real quick, Katina is asking if there are a lot of these type of pregnancy fossils, does that suggest high pregnancy mortality? I do not know enough on the subject to comment on it, but I do know that we have hundreds of ichthyosaurs and hundreds of plesiosaurs. So, unlike with dinosaurs, we actually have a massive sample size. So it could just be that the weird fossils are surviving and getting preserved because this is such a fossil-rich environment. But I'm not going to rule it out. I just don't know personally. I haven't studied that. Or I don't study these guys. I study dinosaurs. Sorry, I had to cough. Speaking of dinosaurs, why do they never give live birth? Well, we're not 100% certain. At the moment, if what I've read is correct, it seems to be a way that archosaurs derive their bones as or in embryo. They appear to absorb calcium directly from the eggshell and incorporate that into their bones, whereas other reptiles do not. And that middle step could be the barrier preventing general archosaurs from giving live birth. Which, if a crocodile could give live birth, it would probably give live birth. They spend so much time in the water already. But they don't. They are stuck on land, at least for part of their lives. And all dinosaurs seem to have been the same way, as far as we know. Put a little asterisk there. Anyway, fun little live birth tangent aside, we do have lots of other creatures, and we are almost halfway through our time. So I'm going to attempt to speed up this process a little bit. Here we go. Now we're going to take a look at one of the apex predators of the Jurassic coast. This is Pliosaurus funki, with bizarre color choices. That's a thing. I like this one more. Yes, this is Pliosaurus. And wow, nice one, me. I forget what plio means. Oh, apparently it means more lizard. From Richard Owen. Okay, thanks, Owen. Thank you very much. You never messed up, ever. Richard Owen was a naturalist in the 1800s. He was a good anatomist for the most part. For the most part. Anyway. So what is Pliosaurus, or more broadly, what is a pliosaur? Because this is another animal that is the namesake of an entire group, which you might be noticing here. Paleontology, as we know it, sort of got its start in England, or at least in Northern Europe broadly. So a lot of our modern famous groups that have bones that can be found in England have their namesakes also in England. Pliosaurus here is no exception. And weird as it might sound, Pliosaurus is closely related to Plesiosaurus. They are both technically plesiosaurs within Sauropterygia. It just so happens that some of these long-necked, small-headed reptiles grew big heads and got short necks. And then some of those got long necks and small heads. It's complicated. It's very, very complicated. But regardless, this is a member of the broadly short-necked, big-headed lineage. And unlike Plesiosaurus, which would have hunted smaller fish, maybe some squid, Pliosaurus was capable of taking on bigger prey. And I say capable because we do have pliosaurs with stomach contents, showing that some of them were small prey specialists. But we also have skeletons from some showing they were larger prey specialists. They seem to have gone back and forth, and they had a more general body plan that let them hunt almost anything. They may have just been complete opportunists. Which, fair enough for the creature that is broadly called the T-Rex of the sea. Called that because they have incredibly powerful jaw muscles with big jaws with big railroad spikes for teeth. Once this thing bit you, you were not escaping. Just flat out, you were not getting away. And some of them at least hunted plesiosaurs. We know that for pretty certainty. We know some of them hunted ichthyosaurs, too. This would have been probably one of, if not the top predator of this area, which is a little different from our modern whales and sharks. Although sharks were here. I didn't mention that earlier, but there were sharks here. They were mostly fairly small, though, compared to a lot of the apex predator sharks we have today, because the apex predator niche was filled by reptiles. Okay, up next, we have another plesiosaur. This one is a stand-in. So this is Romaleosaurus, or Romaleosaurus, acting as a stand-in for Cryptocleitus. Cryptocleitus, they're fighting to get out of the hatchery. Cryptocleitus is a larger, stockier plesiosaur from the Jurassic Coast. Not as big as Romaleosaurus. As I said, this is a stand-in, but I think it's a rather handsome-looking stand-in. They probably would have hunted fish too, while also being capable of taking larger game. Beyond that, there's not really a lot to say to distinguish them from Plesiosaurus. This is the thing with the Jurassic Coast. It appears to have been it appears to have always been an area of really high biodiversity. So there were a lot of different species. A lot of those species being similar creatures. We have a lot of ichthyosaurs. We have a lot of plesiosaurs. We have several pliosaurs, dozens of fish. It's complicated. With that said, we have a stand-in here for something that is unfortunately not in this game. This is a stand-in creature for a rather weird lineage of crocodilians that lived during this time. Now, for the record, this is Kaikaifalu, which is a mosasaur. Mosasaurs, if you don't know, are basically aquatic monitor lizards. So they were actual giant lizards. But it's here to represent a metriorhynchid, which is a group of almost entirely ocean-going crocodiles. As you can probably imagine, we have no living examples of aquatic crocodiles. But we do have these guys. Let me see. I had a picture. Did I not keep it? Did I? Okay, no, I didn't keep the picture I had. Great job, Doc. Let me pull up an image. Here we go. So, I'm gonna pop up an image of some of these weird ancient ocean-going crocodilians. And again, these are a group called metriorhynchids. And while their overall body plan is similar to modern crocodiles, there are quite a few differences. They have heavily reduced limbs, bigger heads, with generally weaker jaws with some exceptions. And many of them would have been mostly marine. We're not sure. So, metriorhynchids are very weird. They may have made the transition to being fully marine, but we're not 100% sure. I don't believe we have any with the skeleton of a baby in their abdomen, like we do for ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs. But their body plan suggests that they were at least on their way to becoming fully marine. And some of them got absolutely massive. Too massive, in my opinion, such as, I believe, Plesiosuchus up here. But surrounding the oceans near England, we would have had Dacosaurus here. We would have had Metriorhynchus itself, again, the namesake of the group, and many more. Many, many more. Some that are exceptionally well preserved, I will say. But they're just another example of an extinct lineage that we no longer have, unfortunately. But they are really, really cool. Yep, and here this one goes swimming past elite these. I wish there was a Metriorhynchid in this game. It would be really cool, but sadly, even with modding, it appears to just not be a thing of interest for people. Anyway, we do have other creatures to cover today. And I would sort of like to end on a dinosaur-y note. So I think up next, we're gonna take to the skies. Now if you've played this game, this is gonna be really weird that these guys are coming out of this specific hatchery. Um, and yeah, you can see them glitch through it. I'm actually making use of a glitch here to get these guys out of the normal dinosaur hatchery and release them into the wider world. So, go, be free, my minions. These are, sorry, these are a stand-in for Anuranathus, a name that literally translates to frog face, which you will see if they stop flying. Oh, and super quick, Maya Adkison is asking, where is Floofosaurus? Perfect timing, Maya. This is one of the Floofosaurs. Not a dinosaur, but it is very fluffy, and we know it was very fluffy, actually, from the fossils. Um, anyway, this little guy is a stand-in for the pterosaur Anuranathus, which is officially known from Germany, but it's pretty likely there would have been Anuranathids in England during the during the middle Jurassic to late Jurassic. They are a really weird group of pterosaurs, in that, unlike most of them, they had very short, very wide faces, and they had very short, stubby wings. And that is really weird. Why did they do that? Well, they were probably hunting bugs. What you're looking at is the Jurassic equivalent of a bat. And they probably would have been very good at their job. They're actually built quite a bit like modern bats. This one is trying to figure out if it can sit on this rock or not. We'll let him tend to his business while we release some more little. Whoop! Yep, we're getting all the camera angles. We'll let him get his bearings while we let loose the rest of these little flying menaces. I really do love these guys so much. These aren't a mod; these are in the actual game, and I am so happy that they're in the game. They're so cute and really pretty too. They have so many pretty colors. I love it, love it. Anyway, so as I said, this is a stand-in for Neuranathus, which is not known from the Jurassic Coast, but there seems to have been a lot of interchange between Western Europe broadly and the British Isles. They shared a lot of animals, including dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and ocean-going creatures. So while they're not entirely interchangeable, they belong here. Just based on everything else that's found here. And I gave these guys like dozens of little rocks they can sit on, but I guess they want to sit on the ground. Ungrateful little critters. Anyway, Moving on to a slightly more typical pterosaur. Um, so this is Dimorphodon. And if you know your pterosaurs, then you know it shouldn't really be here. Dimorphodon is known from the late Triassic slash early Jurassic of England. But there are no other examples of rhamphorhynchid pterosaurs in the game. So they're here as a stand-in for a more typical rhamphorhynchid. And that's a long word. What is a rhamphorhynchid? Rhamphorhynchids are one of the main lineages of pterosaurs. They typically have bigger heads, they typically have smaller heads and long tails. And many of them appear to have been either insectivorous or fish eaters. And as with many of the creatures of today, the namesake of the group, Rhamphorhynchus, is known from England. And this is one of the most stunning fossils I've ever seen, and one of the most famous fossils of all time, too. This is a Rhamphorhynchus that crashed down in the warm, shallow seas of ancient Britain, sunk to the bottom, and was very, very slowly covered by ultra-fine sediments. It's so well preserved, you can still see its wing membranes, and the characteristic little vein that it had on its tail. And that's vein as in V-A-N-E, like a weather vane, that it probably used to help study itself while flying. And yes, as Caden points out, it was featured in Walking with Dinosaurs. In a very fun scene, a few very fun scenes, actually. Many of the creatures today were in Walking with Dinosaurs. Anyway, Rhamphorhynchus, or Rhamphorhynchids more broadly, were, again, fish eaters and insect eaters. In fact, there's a fossil of, I think, Rhamphorhynchus itself being eaten by a fish. Yes, yes, it is a Rhamphorhynchus, so I can show this. Um, this is a pterosaur that got caught by a fish. You don't see that every day. But it just goes to show how often these guys were by the oceans. They got hunted by fish. um, Rhamphorhynchids were, broadly speaking, the more common pterosaurs early on when the group first appeared. And again, these are characterized by having smaller heads and longer tails. There's a few other differences, but I'm not a pterosaur researcher. I like to study things that don't have bones made out of paper. I say that I work with Deinonychus, but you get what I mean. Um, anyway, Rhamphorhynchids were very common. We have them all over the Old World, all over the New World, wherever we have rocks of or from the Triassic or the Jurassic, they show up. But weirdly enough, they completely disappear in the Cretaceous. And we're not sure why. It's like a switch is just suddenly flipped. They go from being the most common pterosaur to the least common pterosaurs to extinct, as far as we can tell. And we can actually say that with some certainty because since these were flying creatures, with many of them living near the ocean, they got preserved pretty well, pretty often, despite being so delicate. If you have oceanic deposits, it's very common for you to have some pterosaurs mixed in, just because oceans are great at making fossils. Anyway, yeah, they disappear. And they're replaced by the pterodactyloids, which I wanted to show in this episode or in this stream, but apparently I can't. Thank you. Thank you very much, computer, for not letting the mod work. So I will instead show a picture. This is a picture of Pterodactylus, the namesake of the group. Pterodactyloids, which is the proper term, or pterodactyls for short, if you want to make paleontologists mad. Pterodactyloids are characterized by having big heads and tiny tails. Gehalopterus, which our Enurognathus, which I showed a few minutes ago, is a pterodactyloid. And this group completely takes over the skies during the late Jurassic and into the Cretaceous. They are insanely diverse. There are many fish eaters, there are many insect eaters, there are small land prey specialists and larger land prey specialists, such as everyone's favorite demon stork, Quetzalcoatlus. They completely take over, and they grow absurdly diverse. And they survive all the way to the end of the Cretaceous. Sadly, we don't have any alive today, but I kind of wish we did. They're so weird. When I say their bones are made out of paper, that's not much of an exaggeration. It is a wonder they fossilized at all. But that is all I have for the skies. So we are going to be transitioning to the land for the rest of our creatures for today. And yes, as Caden says, demon giraffe stork. Yeah, that's a pretty good description. And let's see how we are doing on super chats and stuff. Okay. So far for tonight's fundraiser, we have raised about $39 here on YouTube. I'm just checking to see if there's been anything. Oh, we did get something on Venmo. Let me just check that. Yes, okay. Thank you, Jody, for $10 on Venmo. Thank you very much. Venmo and CashApp show me the first names of people, sometimes the last names too, but I don't say those. So I just say your names, so you know I got it. Thank you. So that puts us at $49 for tonight's. Oh, that's right. And Ember sent in memberships, which 4 got saved, I believe. So $53. Thank you very much, everybody. We're doing really well for tonight. Thank you. Right. On to our. Oh, right. I'll release this last crop of Dimorphodons, because why not? We are now moving on to the land. And there's one particular dinosaur I want to end off with today. So we're going to be starting with this hatchery over here. And we're going to be starting with some stand-ins. So I'm just going to start releasing these guys one after another and talking about them as they come out. So, on the land at this time in England, there were quite a few dinosaurs. Several dozen species. I cannot show all of them today, so we will have to deal with little stand-ins like this guy. This is a stand-in for the small ornithischians. So the tiny plant-eating dinosaurs that would have, as they're doing now, scurried through the undergrowth. And they're, I guess, running scared from the pterosaurs. Moving up a size category, we have some larger ornithischians. So these in particular are Dryosaurus from the late Jurassic of North America, but their relatives would have lived in this area at this time as well. We have bones from them, in particular, a very famous dinosaur called Hypsilophodon, which this could be a stand in for. Actually, yeah, let's say this is Hypsilophodon. They're kind of interchangeable. Um, Caden, don't get mad about me for that. But these are the mid-sized ornithischians. And again, we have a lot of these here. They're just not in this game, so we have to use stand-ins for now. But we at least have them here to help fill out the forests. We also have small armored dinosaurs. With this Celutosaurus standing in for them. Now we do have some ankylosaurs from the Jurassic coasts. Most of the named ones, though, are from the Cretaceous. And these guys should work. They're just kind of stuck in the leaves for a minute. Yep, there we go. Celutosaurus itself is from England. It's just from the early Jurassic. But we have fossil evidence for animals like it in the mid to late Jurassic as well. Sorry, just getting a drink. I'm talking a lot. Go figure. You think I'd be used to it by now. Anyway, we have these small armored dinosaurs. And they would have been making the transition to a more ankylosaur-like body plan. Oh, they made them run on two legs. Oh, that's actually great. Sorry, I haven't seen this before. I never bred these guys. Celutosaurus would have been able to run on two legs. That's really neat. And I agree with Rana here. This is indeed the pinecone dino. But now we can get to something that is named from this area. Remember, things about to get a lot more scared. This is Metriacanthosaurus. And at first glance, y'all probably think it looks like an Allosaurus. You know, it's kind of got that big boxy head, little arms, walks on two legs, yada yada. And while that does kind of describe a lot of theropod dinosaurs, you would actually be right. Metriacanthosaurus here is a Metriacanthosaurid. Again, namesake of the group. Anyway, Metriacanthosaurids are a group of allosauroids, meaning they are closely related to Allosaurus itself. Metriacanthosaurus in particular is from the south coast of England. It probably would have hunted more inland areas, but occasionally wandered out to the beaches where the namesake, or where the original skeleton was preserved. Like other allosauroids, they would have focused on medium, like small to medium-sized prey for the most part. We don't have any evidence of these guys being sauropod specialists. That, not to say that's impossible, we just don't have evidence for it. Oh, and they have a little social behavior here, which I love that little shove. It's really cute. Sorry, just a moment. Sorry, wrong notification. I thought we got another Venmo. But anyway, Allosauroids. Very common group in the Jurassic, very widespread, very successful. We have Metriacanthosaurids from Europe, Asia, and I think we might have fragments of them from North America, but I could be wrong. They were just very successful. Even if this group even if Metriacanthosaurids in particular don't seem to have survived very far into the Cretaceous. But it was probably one of the apex predators of the land at this time. And now, we move on to some other things. So, this is a stand-in for a stegosaur called Dacentrurus, which is a name and a half. Dacentrurus, the big D, is a medium-sized stegosaur from, you guessed it, the late Jurassic of southern England. We have fossils from it on the Jurassic coast. They're not exceptionally well preserved, but they are well preserved enough for us to know what it is. And that it probably would have been very spiky and very platey, like a lot of other stegosaurs. And okay, to be fair, Maya, you say that name 5 times fast. Here, I'll put it in the chat. Its name is an abomination. Dacentrurus. Why? Why? Anyway, unfortunately, there's not a ton to say about Dacentrurus. I said we have enough to know what it is, but not much beyond that. So we will leave them to wander northward, I suppose, as we move on to a very famous dinosaur. Well, a stand-in for a very famous dinosaur. This is Camarasaurus from North America, standing in for one of the first sauropods ever named. And I bet that Caden already knows what sauropod I'm talking about from England. As he types, I will just go ahead and say, this is Cetiosaurus. Yeah, hey, as I said it. Bravo, Caden, bravo. Applause in the chat for Caden. Good job. Cetiosaurus. That name translates to... well, first it's Karen off the Dimorphodon. But that name translates to whale lizard. Cetiosaurus was first discovered in the 1800s. We had some limb bones and some vertebrae. Sir Richard Owen believed it to be a giant crocodile, but because of the name, he named it whale lizard, or Cetiosaurus. We now know that it is, in fact, not a crocodile, though that's actually kind of a good guess taxonomically speaking. Instead, it was a rather large sauropod. Cetiosaurus is the namesake of a group of sauropods called Cetiosaurids, which are one of the first radiations of really large sauropods in the fossil record. And by really large, I'm meaning over 20 tons in weight, possibly 30 or 40, 50 to 60 feet long, just really big, really heavily built animals. They weren't the biggest sauropods by any means, but they were some of the first really large ones we have in the fossil record. And being a dinosaur named in the 1800s, Cetiosaurus has had literally dozens of species assigned to it over the years, of which I believe only 2 or 3 are still valid. But hey, it's a dinosaur from the 1800s that's still valid, so that's something. You'd be surprised how rare that is. Beyond that, there's not a ton to say, other than apparently there is a skeleton of a Cetiosaurus in a shopping mall in England, which I love. I I love it when fossils just get put in random places. I mean, documented obviously. Um, but just so people can see them in their everyday life. It helps bring them to life, you know? Um, okay, this one has watermarks on it, but I believe this is the one I was thinking of. Yeah, or well, no, looks like this is in a museum. I I don't know where the one I'm thinking of is, but I know it's in a mall. And I again, um, where is it? No, okay, never mind. It is this one. I just thought it was in a mall for some reason, but no, it's in a little museum. I don't recognize public spaces, I guess. Shows how much time I spend around people. But yeah, you can get a good grasp on its size from here. It's a pretty big sauropod. Do do do. But from the Jurassic Coast, some of our very famous dinosaurs, and the ones we're going to end with today, are theropods. They're meat-eating dinosaurs. And we're going to start off with another stand-in for now. But the ones after this are going to be the dinosaurs. So this is Jura Tyrant. And as the name implies, this is an early tyrannosaur. It is very early in the group's history. It's barely recognizable as a tyrannosaur, but it is recognizable as a tyrannosaur. Specifically, Jura Tyrant is from a group of tyrannosauroids called Proceratosaurs, of which we'll be seeing the namesake here in a minute. So I'll talk about them more then. It is fragmentary, but like with Dacentrurus, we have enough to know what it is. And it is an early Tyrannosaur. Which, it's just kind of interesting to think that they show up in the Middle Jurassic in England. Oh, and I guess we don't get a fancy camera view because a Dimorphodon flew in front. Oh, no, don't tell me they're stuck. Ah! Okay. We're having some technical difficulties. They're stuck in... Sorry, I've been talking too much. They're stuck in their enclosure. Great. I could swear they worked just the other day, but nope, we're gonna have to try again. I guess we're gonna have to go with the in-game one. Sorry, this will only take a second, folks. I'm sorry. This is what happens when you play with mods, I guess. Gotta expect them to break down sometimes. This is the one dinosaur I didn't try earlier because I assumed it would work. I tried all the rest of the dinosaurs to make sure they wouldn't crash my game. Well, good job, me. Ah, well, this model is actually pretty good. I'm just a stickler for paleo accuracy. This is Proceratosaurus. Again, this is the namesake of the group of Proceratosaurids, an early branch of the Tyrannosaur family tree that's found throughout North America and found throughout Europe and Asia. I don't believe we have any confirmed ones from North America yet. Anyway, they're very widespread, they're very successful, but they're fragmentary usually when they're found. Proceratosaurus here is actually is actually one of the oldest creatures we've seen today. That is actually what it says it is. Dimorphodon is technically older, but Proceratosaurus is known from about 160 to 170 million years ago. That's the middle to early middle Jurassic, almost early Jurassic. And as you can see, because this model is actually pretty good, it's very lightly built, very quick, has nice long arms with big claws, and it has a crested skull, which is how it got its name. Proceratosaurus was discovered in the early 1900s, and I guess because it has a crest on its skull, we decided to call it the early crested lizard, because why not? It does not have any relation to Ceratosaurus, in case anyone is curious. Though I can't really blame you for assuming they might be related. Anyway, it did indeed have a pretty little crest, which I can show if I can find the picture. We don't have the full crest for Proceratosaurus, unfortunately, but we do have part of it. We have a bit up here, and we have some up here. And we have a lot of skulls from other Proceratosaurids that showed that, yeah, they had crests. They had these big old head crests running down the middle of their skulls. Now, if I recall correctly, Proceratosaurus here was actually discovered in a mine, which, weirdly enough, is how a lot of English dinosaurs were discovered. A lot of them were discovered in mines and gravel pits. And that's because while we do have dinosaur-bearing rock layers exposed on the surface in England, we have a lot more of them buried beneath the surface. Because a lot of British rock layers aren't very vertical, many of them are still pretty flat. So if you want to get to the dinosaurs, you have to dig down. It's not like an area like, say, Wyoming, where some of the rock layers are tilted at almost 90 degrees to the ground. Yeah, Proceratosaurus found in a mine. Some of the best iguanodons found in a mine. Cetiosaurus found in a mine. It's very much a reoccurring theme. It's a reoccurring theme with these dinosaurs. But Proceratosaurus is not our last creature of the evening, though it is the penultimate. Now, our last creature, funny enough, if I can get it, yep, I'll get the fossil started. I'll get the dinosaur started as I show you guys an image of the first named dinosaur. And I want to say before I show you that this is not a joke, this is the first named dinosaur. Well, sort of, but we'll get into that in a moment. I'm going to give you guys a second to get your dirty jokes out of the way, and then I'm going to make them worse. So first I'll say what this is, and then I'll say what it was named. So this is a fragment of a carnivorous dinosaur's femur. So the big bone in your leg. It's the end of the femur, right where the knee is. This is actually part of the knee joint. And this is an illustration of the fossil from a certain view that was chosen. It was illustrated in a book titled The Natural History of Oxfordshire by Robert Plot in the, was it the 1600s? Here, does it say on here? Yep, 1677. So this is over a century. This is almost 2 centuries before the word dinosauria was coined. But this bone was found in England. It was illustrated in a book, and the caption for the image was scrotum humanum. I did not stutter. Scrotum humanum. You don't need to know Latin to know what that translates to. It's that bad. And it was named for how it looked from a certain angle. Now, I will say later on, so Robert Plot was a naturalist. He was an early naturalist. Later, scientists would realize, no, this is part of a leg. It was hypothesized to maybe part of a Roman war elephant. Then it was realized, oh no, this is a reptile, but we don't know what kind. And then, over a century later, it was finally recognized as part of the dinosaur Megalosaurus. Arguably the most creatively named dinosaur of all. The big lizard. Anyway, let's show you guys more of this creature than just its leg, because it's actually kind of neat. But yes, this is Megalosaurus. Is it Bucklandae? Let me double check. Yes, okay. Megalosaurus bucklandae, or Buckland's big lizard. Now, Buckland, the Reverend William Buckland, was one of the first paleontologists. One of the first people we can actually call a paleontologist, rather. Buckland, he discovered a lot of different dinosaurs, and he named a lot of them. He did not coin the term dinosauria. That was... Wow, I have been talking too long. How did I forget his name? Richard Owen. Wow. Great job, me. Dinosauria was named by Richard Owen, and the dinosaurs Owen used to describe the group are Megalosaurus, Iguanodon, and Hylaeosaurus. Which is not in this game. Hylaeosaurus is a small armored dinosaur. But yeah, Megalosaurus here is... If you take that description in the book by Robert Plot to be a name, it is the first named dinosaur. And its original name was Scrotum humanum. You know, they say times change, but I think some things never change in regards to humanity. At any rate, enough complaining about questionable naming conventions. What are megalosaurs? Because, of course, this is a British dinosaur, so it's the namesake of its entire group. On top of also being the namesake of, well, one of the first dinosaurs. Anyway, megalosauroids, or megalosaurids, are a group of carnivorous theropod dinosaurs. They are commonly recovered as the most basal, or the earliest branching, tetanuran dinosaurs. I believe they're tetanurans. Let me double check that, actually. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay, I did have that right. Tetanuran dinosaurs are dinosaurs that are sorry, there are theropod dinosaurs that are characterized by having a more bird-like skeleton with some hollow bones that are connected to the respiratory system, and a stiffened tail. Tail stiffened by ossified ligaments. So, the things that pull on your muscles, those. But with bone incorporated to make them tougher and stiffer. Megalosaurs are the earliest branching group of tetanurans, even more early branching than allosauroids, such as Metriacanthosaurus over there. Um, you could say they're the most primitive, but that word doesn't mean a whole lot in modern scientific context. Um, but with that said, they do lack the vast majority of development seen in later theropod dinosaurs. Their skeleton is less pneumatized. It has less air. It has fewer air pockets. It's less connected to their respiratory system, um, along with a bunch of other differences. Um, but with that said, they were actually pretty successful. It's pretty widely accepted currently that spinosaurids, are a derivation of megalosaurids that seem to have outsurvived the rest of the group. Uh, Spinosaurids made famous by Spinosaurus. And there are actually British spinosaurs, although all of them are from the early Cretaceous. So maybe we could cover that in an upcoming stream. But megalosaurs were found all over the world. We have them in North America. We have them in Asia. We have them in Europe. We might even have some pieces of them from Africa, though I'm not certain on that. Which I think is pretty neat. And unfortunately, they don't make it to the end of the Cretaceous, unlike our little Proceratosaurus there. But when they apparently live pretty good. And they get pretty big too. The largest megalosaurids are actually rivaling tyrannosaurids in size, which is kind of cool. But with that said, I think that's most of the creatures from the mid to late Jurassic of the Jurassic Coast. We have covered the creatures of the sea, including giant fish, not as giant, but still large reptiles, two fish that appear to still be joined at the hip. I'm not sure why. Maybe they're having a mating dance. We've seen the namesakes of many groups, ranging from plesiosaurs to ichthyosaurs and pliosaurs. Many closely related dinosaurs, such as one of the first named sauropods in Cetiosaurus, the first dinosaur, the human scrotum, and more. Seen quite a few dinosaurs today. And other things too, not just dinosaurs. I hope you all enjoyed this little educational slash fundraising stream. Let me just double check, make sure if there have been anything, I can talk. Let me see if anything else has come in. Uh, Nope. Okay. So right now we're sitting at about $53 for this fundraiser night. I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you very much. I hope you learned something. And even though we did not meet the goal of 5 super chats over $5, we did collectively make it over $25. So you guys get to choose the next topic of the next stream. This can be anywhere on Earth at any point in time, although if it is anywhere besides the Mesozoic, I will need to use a lot more pictures and a lot less gameplay footage. But I'm sure I could work something out. Let's see. We've already brought up that the Jurassic Coast, despite the name, extends. Oh wow, we just have a gang of megalosaurs here. Oh no, they're doing the lead sick these thing. Anyway, the Jurassic Coast actually extends into the Cretaceous. That's where you get some really famous dinosaurs like Iguanodon. We get our first Spinosaurs in the early Cretaceous too. And the ocean life in the early Cretaceous, though it doesn't get as much press, still changes quite a bit. Things still continue to evolve. Go figure, life has a tendency to do such a thing. We could try North Africa in the early Cretaceous. That could be fun. We haven't touched Australia, but there's actually a lot of stuff to see in Australia that could actually be really fun to cover. I think I'll leave you guys with those 3 options for now. And let's go ahead and start a poll. I can go ahead and do that. What should the next stream topic be? So option 1, let's put at early Cretaceous, Jurassic Coast. Not confusing at all. Let's say early Cretaceous, North Africa. And actually, there was a 4th. This stream was almost about Madagascar, so I will add that in too. So we'll put just Australia, and then the weirdness that is Madagascar. Because during the late Cretaceous, Madagascar gets really freaking weird. And while that poll begins, I'm going to have a drink. Oh. And thank you, Andrew. I'm glad to hear y'all enjoy this. I like talking about dinosaurs too, even though I need to remember to drink more. We'll give this poll a couple more minutes before we bring things to a close. And I have about 10 minutes, I think, before I have to go join another stream. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to ask them either at me in the chat or if you could ask via super chat, that would be appreciated. Also, I'll just go ahead and put this in here. If you'd like to hop on the stream and ask some questions super quick, I'd be happy to have you on as long as you're polite. I will have to hop off in just under 10 minutes. But I am excited. I'm excited to see what all questions y'all got. Let's see. Seen plenty of Megalosaurus. Let's check in with the little bat guys. Where are they going? They going places, or are they just flying around? I think they might just be hovering around a little bit. I love the wing patterns on these guys. They really are so pretty. Um, so the link in the chat right now is the link to join the StreamYards if you want to ask me a question in person. We still have about 6 or 7 minutes before I have to go and call the stream to a close. But if you just want to ask questions in chat, also feel free. We have a few minutes here. I'm just going to be going around to these cute little guys as they enjoy their little sunbathing. They're so okay. This game's camera is awful at time. Really? This game's camera is awful at times. And apparently I need to clear out the foliage, get a good look at this guy, but I want to get a good look at him because he's so freaking cute. There. There he is. Look at that face. Look at that cute little face. He's so adorable. Ember is asking who would win if they all fought. If it's everything for itself on land, I would probably bet for the Cetiosaurus because it's a sauropod. And sauropods are sauropods, no matter what you are, a sauropod's a sauropod. If we're talking about in the ocean, probably the pliosaur. It's the best built for combat. And if you're a flyer, I'd just bet on the Neuronathus because I think it's really freaking cute. Let's see. What is the poll saying? Oh boy, people need to vote. We are 50-50 on Australia and Madagascar. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on the poll. Whichever way it swings is what we're going to go with. So do y'all want to hear about... Oh, and there it is. Our next little educational stream will be on the craziness that is Mesozoic Australia. And we actually have quite a bit of stuff to cover from there, so that'll be fun. Let's see. There's not really many questions coming in, so I think we'll probably just go ahead and call it to a close. Once again, I want to say a sincere thank you to everyone who has donated tonight. Your contributions will help me take the time off work I need to dig up some dinosaurs this year, which I am very excited for. I found a lot of fossils. I showed some of them in the last stream if you want to see them. But yeah, I'm going to be doing some pretty interesting things this summer. Some pretty interesting things. And thank you to all of you for helping me get to do them. If you like what I do, please like. If you want to share this stream or any videos you like with a friend, please do. Subscribing always helps. If you want to support me financially more so, you can always become a member to the channel. That's a monthly subscription. So is Patreon. I do have a Patreon, patreon.com/DokDeino. Patreon lets me keep more of what you send, but any amount is always super appreciated. Yeah, I think that is all from me tonight. Well, Rana here is asking about Antarctic dinos. Let's put that one on the next poll. That could be a lot of fun. Anyway, y'all have a fantastic night. If you have not had your fill of Dr. Dino for the evening, I will be joining my friend Mark Reed over on his channel for a couple hours. It is not a science stream, though. We're just going to be having some fun. Uh, yeah, I'll be there. Have a great evening, y'all. See you soon.